And political leaders can be crucial in helping a community deal with that spiritual problem that arises in great tragedies. So there is a role both for the professionals and the political leaders, but at least in the United States, we have prescribed detailed ways for the professionals to relate to each other. That's the IMS system that I described. We have no rules for how the political leaders and the professionals should relate to each other. And when a disaster happens, they often muck it up. President Bush and Governor Blanco of Louisiana and Mayor Nagin of New Orleans were horrendously incompetent when Katrina occurred. And they were not good leaders of the response, and they were ineffective in many cases, in relating to their professional responders. That is something that can be prepared for. Political leaders can be trained and alerted and sensitized to play a better role in a disaster, and professionals can learn better how to deal with the political leaders. It's something that we've worked out much better in the military, where typically each role has a better understanding of what each of their responsibilities are and how they relate to each other. It's not very good in the civilian sector, and it's not very good between the military and the civilian sector, at least in the United States. I'm going to skip. Just one. I'm sorry. I'd be happy to take the.
No, it's time actually.
Okay. Then let me wrap up with very quickly and just mention. Was there a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please.
I just wonder if emergency situation happen because of disaster. Should we still follow the rules? Should we abide all law and regulation, while the situation from the community need a very quick response? For example, if we need some budgets to handle everything, to give a help to them, so we have to follow the rules, while it will be late. Yeah, because in Indonesia context, corruption act is very serious issue. So many officer doesn't want to take an action for that.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of the reasons that I talked about thinking about ahead of time about what kinds of legal authorities and special procedures one might want to have for an emergency, and thinking about establishing those on a contingency basis. We're making some progress in that regard in the U.S., but it's often hard because, for instance, legislators want to watch closely how the executive branch spends money, and so they may be reluctant to give a political leader emergency authority that could be invoked and allow that person to spend the money. There's no easy way around those kinds of controversies. The case has to be made. Either domestic examples have to be shown, or international examples have to be shown to show why that's significant. Perhaps there have to be compromises made that aren't perfect. But I think that these are some of the things. There are generic things about getting ready for disasters that we can anticipate, and that at least there's a hope of working out. In the end, there aren't going to be perfect solutions. I know I've heard a number of senior officials in the United States say that confronted with a very clear need to do something that would save lives, particularly saving lives, or that was necessary for national security or whatever, they would do it and worry about justifying it legally later. And there is potential difficulty in that. There's potential for abuse of it. In the United States, there's a strong enough constitutional tradition that perhaps we worry about it less. But I must say that I personally am troubled by some of the decisions that President Bush made on an emergency basis about things like imprisoning people at Guantanamo, etc. So I think that there are dangers in these emergency powers that different countries are going to have different sensitivities to. On the other hand, we do need some of those procedures for disasters, and certainly limited authority to spend money that doesn't follow the usual procedures would seem to be a reasonable one. I'm very close to the end, and I will go quickly. Another problem that may or may not be an issue here in Indonesia, but certainly is a big problem in the United States, and is a problem in a different way in China, is what I call handoffs across boundaries. We all start out with the idea that local responders deal with disasters. If they get too big, they ask for help from the provincial level, and the provincial level, if it gets too big, asks for help from the national level. But sometimes those handoffs get mired in political rivalries. They get mired in incompetent